Hey everyone, let me see. Something like that should do. Much nicer, much better. Cool. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about coding tests and some things that I think are true about coding tests. So, if let's just summarize very quickly, what is a code test? So, a code test is basically the idea of having a written exam of some sort, or a hand-in or something like that, in order to test whether or not a developer has what it takes to work at a company. Now, this is a trend that if you're not a developer, you will be forced to do these. Trust me. If you want to have a job as a developer, most likely you're going to have to do a code test. It is getting to the point where it's almost standard practice. The unfortunate reality of this matter is that some code tests are good, some code tests are bad, and the fact of them, as far as in my humble opinion, if you will, there are as many bad code tests as there are bad companies when it comes to recruitment of developers. The thing is that it's almost like a lost art. It's almost like, I don't know why this is, but for some reason I'm starting to consider a code test to be a very good reflection of the type of organization that is representing the code test, or rather the company that I'm talking about. Like, if I'll give you a few examples. I've done so many code tests for different front-end roles, for example, that are based on computer science. Not a single question about CSS, not a single question about, unit testing, anything at all that is remotely relevant to modern front-end development, but a lot of computer science questions, so thumbs up there. Because the thing is that when you pass that code test, all it's going to tell the person who is going to evaluate you is that you know how to code. And the thing is that doesn't actually help you all that much. You think it will, but it doesn't. If you are any type of if you're remotely sane about this, you have to basically design a code test that will reflect the type of skills that you want to have within the company. And the thing is that when I see a code test that is really poorly formatted for the role that you're finding applicants for, that to me tells me one of two things. Either the company that has done, like the company I'm applying to, is not a real IT company. They have absolutely, there's no flair, there's no passion, there's nobody in that company who cares enough to actually make sure that good people are coming into the company. That's one thing. That's a possibility, in my opinion. And the second thing is that it's probably they outsource their entire recruitment process to somebody else. So now they don't, and that to me tells me virtually the same thing, that they don't have the type of people inside of the company who has a vested interest in making sure that they have the right people in place. However, a good code test, the ones that I've taken that I really, really enjoy, are the ones that are actually relevant. They're actually checking two main things. And the first and foremost thing they're checking is that you have an up-to-date knowledge of the stuff that you're working on. If you're applying for an operations position, you should know things about Docker, Kubernetes, cloud platforms. You should have like an understanding of these things. That's what your code test should be about. It shouldn't be about how good are you at IP masking or network-based stuff. Like it may be relevant depending on the company, of course, but for the most part, it should be fairly relevant to what you're doing. Same thing goes for front end. If you know like the different JavaScript frameworks and you know how the different web standards work, that should be on your test. It should be relevant. I mean, if you take a driver, for God's sakes, if you're taking a driver license test, you're not. Like they won't give you the same questions as they would for a race car driver. Yeah, sure, it's remotely relevant to each other, related, but it's not the same thing. So the thing is, I was talking to my boss the other day, and we have a new recruit in the process, which is a really exciting new colleague for us. And we were talking about like recruitment process, and he basically said that, yeah, Frederick, this new guy, he seems very, he seems pretty, promising. He got the same code test that you did, yada yada yada. We kind of got talking about like how do you, because the fact of the matter is that it's a very, very difficult thing to figure out if a developer knows their stuff. I mean, that's why you have all these tests. It's so difficult to figure out if they know the stuff, like, because even the test is kind of subjective, because if you're being like, honestly, a lot of people don't perform all that well in a testing situation. I'm one of those people, and so you can't really, even the code test is just a subtle indication of how skilled somebody is. And what I told my boss was basically that I honestly believe that a personal interview is worth 1,000 code tests. Because I can tell you with absolute certainty, I'm not saying that this goes for everybody, and I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to say that I know everything about coding, but I know that I know my stuff. I know that my colleagues know their stuff. I know that they are skilled developers. I know that they are passionate about what they do. I'm passionate about what I do. I know all the newsletters. I know all the trends. All of these different things. I know this, which means that if you put me in an interview situation with the applicant, I need 5 minutes with that person to figure out how passionate they are about their job. Now, I'm going to be honest, there is absolutely no way for me from the interview to tell whether or not they can implement a greedy algorithm or memoization, or if they have a computer science degree. I can absolutely ask those types of questions as well, because I just happen to be interested in that as well. But in my experience, having a highly skilled senior developer that is truly passionate about what they do interview the candidate is actually going to give you much more accurate results than most code tests will actually give you. You have to, but the requirement here is that that person that you're putting in the interview situation has to have to have social graces. They have to be a social person. They have to know how to maneuver in a social environment, because I've been talking to senior developers that are extremely good at what they do, but they did not have the social skills required to be in HR, let's just call it that. And it actually affected quite a bit the interviewing process. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be everything as a programmer. I'm just saying that if you are the type of if you are like me and you really love what you do and you have a fair bit amount of social graces, try to pitch that you should do the interview instead of your HR manager or so forth, or let's at least be present when the interview is being conducted, because trust me, it's probably that colleague or like the person in charge will want that, because at the end of the day they're hiring somebody to come work for your company, maybe even in your department. So if they can get somebody on the inside to help out with that process, that probably is going to end up very well for everybody involved. And maybe you'll actually save both the applicant and your company some time. Because, I don't know, in my experience, if you know your stuff and you're passionate about what you do, you kind of talk the same talk. You speak the same language as everybody else. Or rather, for the people in the industry. So those are my 2 cents on recruitment. So to summarize, code tests are generally very bad, and if you find a good code test, it's usually a reflection of it's usually a reflection of how well structured the company that you're applying to is. And if at all possible, make sure that every single that you have a personal interview, preferably with some developers, when you're hiring somebody, because your developers are going to be able to tell you much quicker if somebody's a good applicant or not. Trust me, that's what I've found so far anyway. Have a great day.